Good afternoon, everybody. We'll go ahead and get started. My name is Kara Reddick. I'm a Deputy City Manager here at the City Hall. Thank you for coming to this information session. The first item on our agenda is the introduction of our City Council Ad Hoc Committee members that are part of this RFP. So I'd like to go ahead and introduce Council Member Stephanie Nguyen.
Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. It's nice to be able to have a bidders conference is what I would call, and have folks show up and be able to, this is a great time to ask questions, get clarification, and so thank you for taking the time out to be here.
And then Councilmember Pat Hume.
Thank you, Kara, and hi, I'm glad to see the interested folks here in the room, and given that this was not a mandatory meeting, for those of you that will be watching later online, we hope to get some good RFPs back so we can keep this process moving forward with a completion date of June. And so it's pretty aggressive, but I think it can be done, and we just want to know what we are doing, what we aren't doing, and what we could be doing better.
Great, thank you. So on the PowerPoint I have today's agenda, but when you walked in, I hope that you picked up the agenda as well as the RFP and the early report. And there was also a sign-in sheet if you'd like to sign in, so we have your contact information. What we'll do, I'll just go over the agenda really quickly. We're going to go over the background and the RFP elements. We'll go over the RFP due dates. We'll have kind of a general question and answer session. If there's any question that you ask that we don't know, we will definitely follow back with you up on the city's website, and we'll kind of go over what that process is. And then we'll just have some closing remarks. So I'm going to just kind of talk about all four of these things in general, and then the council members, they can feel free to chime in. We can kind of keep it casual, but the city incorporated on July 1st, 2000. The city's current population is 171,000 residents. We're a general law city that operates under a city council, city manager form of government. We have a directly elected mayor that serves a 2-year term that lives within the city, and there's four council members that are directly elected at large. They serve 4-year terms, and they live in the district that they're appointed by. The city provides a variety of high-quality services to our residents through a mix of full-time employees and contractors. We have about 313 full-time city employees, and for purposes of this RFP, 200 contractors. So we're assigning contractors as contractors that are assigned to work within city facilities and or drive city-owned or operated vehicles. This also includes public services, also known as alleyway services, also known as Republic Services. So kind of our criteria is if you have a city badge, or you drive a city vehicle, or you work for our integrated waste contractor, then you're one of the contractors that are included in the 200. So the City of Elk Grove provides public safety, public works, development services, transit, solid waste, and general administrative services for the community. The city does not provide fire, parks, water, or sewer service. The city council bases their budget on goals that are directed by the city council and implemented by the city manager. For our current year, we operate on a $345 million all funds budget, of which $65 million is of the general fund. So on May 10th, the city council was presented a gender and ethnic diversity report that was prepared by city staff. A link of that report is in the RFP. There's also a copy in the back of the room. During that council meeting, the city council created a city council ad hoc committee made up of council members Nguyen and Hume that invited members of the public to work with them to determine what are the next steps to do with that report. And subsequently, the ad hoc committee requested staff prepare the RFP that's before you today. So the city staff expects that the diversity audit, inclusion strategy, and training proposals are inclusive and comprehensive. There's 2 sections. The first section is the diversity audit / inclusion strategy, and the second section is training. So they can't be bid together, or they can be bid separately. In section 1, which is the diversity audit inclusion strategy, work should commence about mid-December, and staff anticipates it be finished by June 1st. And then section 2, the training, would follow after. So I was not going to go through specific elements of section 1 and section 2, but if you have questions on those, because they're just listed out in the RFP, you can ask those during the question and answer session. So this next section is also included in the RFP, but the city anticipates proposals will include these following elements. An introductory letter, table of contents, qualifications and experience of your firm, the work plan, which is really kind of the meat of your proposal, a conflict of interest statement in doing business with the city, any supportive information references, and then your fees. You do not need to attach the professional services contract, but you need to tell the city if there's any alteration or changes that you need us to consider. Because we cannot consider anything after the fact that's not included in your proposal, because we'll kind of weight that with the other proposals. So when it comes to evaluation and selection criteria for the RFPs, there will be an internal and external team comprised of reviewers. We'll be looking at qualifications, experience, and references, personnel and staffing, your work plan, your quality and responsiveness of your proposal, and your rates and fees. So I'll go over the RFP due dates. So the RFP was released on August 3rd. Today is the information session, August 23rd. The last date for proposal questions is October 6th. All the questions have to be in writing to me, and you should have my email address. We will be, we're taking notes of all the questions and answers, and we'll be putting those back on the website for others. And then the RFP is due on October 13th by 4:00 p.m. And that is a very firm deadline. Just know that it won't leave, the clerk won't accept it if it's after that date. We anticipate this will go to City Council on December 13th. And if the City Council opts to enter into a contract with the firm, we will provide a notice to proceed on the 14th of December. And then our expectation is that Section 1 will be completed by June 1st. And then Section 2, the training, will follow thereafter and kind of be coordinated. Sorry, I missed that. So we can kind of open up into a Q&A session if you'd like. I should have mentioned that we're recording this video session, but obviously you can see Luca here doing that. That is for people that weren't able to make it. I do want to encourage everybody to register on our website to get updates when I do post new answers to questions. There's the little green icon that you can see in the PowerPoint. So if you go to the city's request for proposal page, you'll see that icon on there, and you can register for that page to get updates. And then, when we're done with this process, you can always unregister, and we don't use your email for anything. But if you have any troubles doing that, just reach out to me and I can help you. But I'll be answering questions about once a week, or if we get more frequent. So depending on the nature of your questions, we may answer it today, or we may follow up on our website later.
I just want to confirm a couple things.
Yeah.
How many city workers? Did you say 313?
313 city employees,
City employees, and then your vendors, 200?
200 contractors.
200 contractors, okay.
And those are the employees, those are employees that are people with a badge, or they drive a city vehicle, or they're part of our integrated waste.
So in order to keep the group size manageable, we figured the cutoff is either they have the badge, work in the building, drive a city vehicle, interface with residents, and then, because if we contract with a law firm for some outside legal advice, we don't want you to have to audit the whole law firm and see what they're doing.
So this is open question period?
Yes.
Okay. I have a couple and I go through. The item C says evaluate internal and external recruitments, promotions, transfers, separation, etc. This is for what? Adverse impact? Or you're looking for problem areas? Because you didn't say that you wanted us to identify once we evaluate them if we find a problem in one of those areas. Are we looking for adverse impact, or should I say a discrepancy in terms of what one would expect to see based on availability?
I think that we would leave that to your discretion as a professional. In your evaluation, if you notice anything regarding a discrepancy, that you would bring it to our attention. I think we just want an evaluation of how all of those are conducted throughout the city.
Okay. And on item D, you asked, and this may be the same answer, but
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get some clarification.
Yeah.
But you say evaluate the EEO reporting practices and reporting. I know that there are certain requirements. The title, the EEOC requires, you're also an affirmative action employer, so you have some reporting requirements as well. Does that include your complaints procedure, your complaints process? Discrimination complaints process?
Yeah, I think that it could.
Okay. I don't want to be the only one asking
Oh
questions.
no, I got a couple hands here.
I had a question regarding other information systems that might be involved. So I know in the proposal it asked about, it mentioned that you use one solution.
Yes.
Are there additional HR systems that are utilized for tracking and recruitment processes?
Yeah, so we use NeoGov for our recruitment process.
Okay.
Is there any? Probably just NeoGov and one solution.
EOGov is for collecting what?
NeoGov is our recruitment software. So applicants register through NeoGov, they get job announcements, and they put their application in through NeoGov. And we can run reports out of NeoGov.
So you can track applicants,
Oh yes,
and you have that back for 5 years?
we have it back for several years, more than 5.
Well, I noticed you were looking for a 5-year history on that.
Yeah, we kind of picked 5 years as manageable.
Yeah, okay.
For somebody, but we have the data past 5 years.
Great.
Yes.
I have a few questions. It states here, when this was first brought out into the paper, that was positions for city employees in a non-public safety position.
Yeah.
Now, is this like janitors, or do they have to have experience? They have to have required, like, I went online and looked under this, and it was, excuse me, I went online and put this in, and then it gave positions, like, it was 8 positions, and all of them were, quote, required to have a college education, because the salary started at like $60,000. And I don't know what a non-public safety position is.
So a non-public safety position would be anybody that's non-sworn and not in our police department. But this is a comprehensive, this includes all city employees. Just,
Do they have to have any type of qualifications or requirements to apply for these?
I might not be understanding your question. Are you asking if of the 313 employees that will be studied, if they include positions like janitors?
Yes.
Okay, so those would fall under a consultant contract, and they most likely would have badges, so they would fall under the consultant part, the 200 consultant contractors, because they have badges that come into our building, so they would be included, but the city of Elk Grove has no janitorial staff positions ourselves. We contract for that service.
Okay. I'm sorry, I misunderstood. What is a non-public safety position?
So a non-public safety position is anyone that does not work in the police department.
Okay.
Basically, everyone that works in the 2-story across the street.
Is a non-public safety.
Okay. Now, most of these positions, they have to have a experience or certain requirements to apply.
Yeah, I mean, everybody that's currently in their job has to have met minimum qualifications and gotten hired, had the qualifications to get the job.
All right.
Oh, yeah,
And I
go
could
ahead.
add that it would be on the job description, there are minimum qualifications for each position, so when those are all reviewed, that information per position is on that job spec. Does that help?
Okay. Then, if it's stating that, then evidently the question was there was too many whites that were in these positions, right? What do I say? If they have the experience, or if they also have the requirements, why would ethnic or gender background have anything to do with this at all? This would be just whoever's required, or whoever has the experience, whoever has the requirements. As far as the nationality of individuals like this shouldn't have anything to do with anything at all.
Well, I think that's great. Thank you for mentioning that. I think part of what we would like to do here with this RFP is to have an independent third-party consultant come in and kind of evaluate the city, our practices, where we're recruiting, what our internal policy is, to make sure that we are abiding by all laws and there's no implicit bias in our organization. And we just really want to, be open to an evaluation from an independent organization on our practices.
I wanted to clarify the kind of the underlying intent and purpose of the study. In work that we've done in similar places, we found that there's kind of two different things. Some jurisdictions really want to have policies that allow the workforce to mirror the ethnic and overall demographic diversity of the city. Others want that plus having the workforce be residents of the city. Can you speak a little bit to how residency is a component of this?
I don't know that residency is a component of this.
Okay.
Technically, we cannot make it a component.
Okay.
Yeah.
My understanding, and I'd like to address his concern too. One is there's some legal obligations as far as making sure that the workforce reflects the community. And that the obligation comes from contracts that the city gets from the federal government. It says, all taxpayers pay taxes and they have a right to expect equal opportunity as far as employment is concerned. And when the numbers are skewed, or you see one group is substantially overrepresented. I'm not saying there's too many white people. I think you made that comment. I think that can be a little bit concerning for folks. I don't think that the objective is to take jobs away from any particular group. It's to make sure that all groups get a fair opportunity to be considered for employment. And one of the ways that we determine if that is happening is by taking a look at the workforce and the practices of the organization to determine if there are any barriers to equal opportunity in how the city does business. And what I understand the purpose of the audit to be is to look at themselves and see if there are opportunities for improving how they do business, to ensure that no group is being denied opportunities or discriminated against.
That was very well put, Mr. Jeffries. I don't think anybody's intending to put somebody lesser qualified in over more qualified because they check a certain box. It's more that do we have anything either intentional or unintentional that are preventing people who are qualified from even competing? And then to your point that you made at the workshop meetings that we had before, kind of addresses your issue. I don't know that we're looking for parity, that if there's X percentage of this certain demographic, that there's X percentage within the city, because to Mr. Jeffries' point, you may have 25% of a certain ethnicity, but only 5% of that 25% are qualified and would want that job, and so you're never going to meet that parity.
Sure. It's an aspirational kind of objective, but when the numbers are hugely skewed, when they're really disproportionate, it is the basis for taking a closer look.
Sure.
And I think that's with the media attention and the community's concern about the numbers, and again, numbers may be fine, and I think I applaud you for moving forward with the audit. But it's always a good idea to see, can we do this better? Can we improve what we're doing? And I think having the answers to the questions that the community raised and the audit will produce will help communicate better with the community. We've done a good faith look at the work or how we're doing business, and we're okay or we're not okay, or we found some opportunities to improve how we do business.
Is there any other questions, or do you guys want to take a moment?
Hi there, everyone. I have a question because I know we discussed the RFP process can be broken into two processes.
Yes.
You can
Yes.
do
Yeah,
part
I-
one or part two.
Yeah. So part one is the diversity audit / inclusion strategy, which should start about mid-December and end by June 1st.
Mhm.
And then section 2 is the training, which will follow shortly thereafter. And they can be bid together or separate.
based on the fact that you would not be quite sure as to what training is needed prior to the strategy being written based on the audit. Is it fair to say that we could potentially look at splitting the training out of this RFP in a sense? I mean, you can say that we can provide this type of training, but to come back in June and look at the training component of it, because I don't think that for a firm who is qualified in doing training in specific areas, I don't think until we get the strategy that is going to be written from the audit, I don't think that a company can really give a fair, honest look and tell you what type of training they would want to do or would be able to provide.
I think that's an excellent point, and I think that this RFP really is focused on that section 1, and so you wouldn't want to put in a bid that's all encompassing section 1 and 2, and here's our total price, because for the apples to apples comparison, there are going to be some firms that will only bid the section 1 piece, and that's the only piece that we're have a hard date of completing, but the firm might want to put in there, we also offer training in these areas, and this is our typical rate.
I get it. I just want to make sure that we're clear that, I mean, being part of this whole process as well, that we're clear that if you don't bid on the training in this part of the RFP, that you will not be overlooked as a firm once the strategy comes back. We can come back and say, hey, these are the trainings that they have said that is needed to go forth for the city.
Yeah, I don't necessarily know that, I hear what you're saying, I don't know that that's how we have it set up right now.
No, it's not set up that way.
No, because my expectation would be, if there was a firm that, we'll use the example of a firm that only wanted to put in training. They can't say, well, we're gonna train you 100% in X, Y, and Z because of these findings, but they would say, we're a training firm, these are our qualifications, our experience, we typically come in and train in these areas, these are our rates. So the way it's set up now, you would need to put in a bid for training to be considered in the future. I mean, we can always, make an evaluation and change that, but the way it's set up now, we wouldn't say you're going to train on X, Y, and Z right now, but we would say, well, this is the firm we're going to use when we're ready, based on the findings of section 1. I mean, is that your understanding?
That's how I understood it to be too.
No, and I understood that, and after further thinking about it just a little bit more, I just think that to get comprehensive training and, like Stephanie and I have discussed, and we discussed in our meetings, every firm can't do everything.
Right.
So, I mean, we totally understand that. I just think that where we are today, I think that part 1 makes sense, and I think that's not going to, since that is not going to be completed until June of next year, I think that allows for the strategy to be completed, and then to say, okay, based on our strategy, this is what we're looking for as far as training. I think personally that we were a little ambitious in putting the training in there. I think that what I'm saying is that based on having some time to think about it and having been involved in the community meetings, I think the training component of the RFP should be broken out of it. It doesn't mean that people cannot say that we do training, but I think we should come back and look at that component of the RFP, because I think that's gonna be very important.
Yeah. Well, what we should do, we have an RFP out there with 2 sections.
Right.
We'll go through the process, there'll be an evaluation committee that looks at proposals that come in, and I think at that time, the evaluation committee or the city council ad hoc committee can provide direction if they want to make a change. But I think we have a certain path that we're gonna go down at this point.
No, I get it.
That's great feedback.
My second question is I know that there was not a fee set for this RFP. Has the city come up with a budget that would be too great for a firm to ask for this process? Because it's gonna be very extensive. It's gonna be a 6-month process for a firm that is gonna include employees. Has there been a firm budget that is set towards this RFP?
No, there's no maximum rates or fees, but
Okay.
know that reasonableness and competitiveness is a part of this process, so that will be part of the evaluation criteria for the review committee when they were reviewing the proposals. We'll go in the back.
I had a question regarding section N, the external workforce analysis. I wondered if you could just provide a little more clarification of what you were looking for there, if it was comparison to other local jurisdictions, if it was compared to the county, if it was compared to local private employers. If you can just share a little bit more there, that would be helpful.
So this is one of the items that they're an external, our city council Adhoc committee, and they're working with a group of residents who would like to see this included. So the city is very interested in asking consultants to look at that and define that as you determine reasonable in the field.
Okay.
So we don't have a specific expectation. We're asking you to provide that.
I think I can help with that. There's, as far as the Department of Labor and EEOC are concerned, you're looking at your internal and external labor market availability. And that internal or your internal employees that can be promoted or transferred into a particular vacant position. Your external market are those people in the surrounding labor force or the community within a reasonable commuting distance that would apply for jobs or would want to come to work. So in terms of the internal and external analysis, well, you want to know, what does my internal workforce look like, the demographics? What does my external workforce look like? Normally, when you're preparing an affirmative action plan, what you're doing is you're looking at the demographics in the community, in the particular labor force. If you're looking for the director of the organization or an executive level position, you may be looking nationwide. If you're looking for a management position or a human resources specialist, you certainly should be able to find people in your local commuting area that can fulfill those qualifications. So I think the first thing that one does is kind of establish what's a reasonable commuting area or labor market to find people who will come to work here in the city. And what do they look like? And normally you get that information from the census data, or that was that ACS, there's another source for that. But there's demographic information out there. But the census data tells you, what does the population look like as far as firefighters or police officers or human resource specialists look like? And it breaks them down by gender and race as well. So you have an idea of what's out there. And then of course, people aren't going to drive 200 miles necessarily to come to work unless they absolutely have to. But if you're looking at a reasonable commute area, that's reasonable. You can set it up with, it can be a county area or a regional area or something along those lines. But those are broken up into respective markets.
Actually, I think I got my answer through your reply. So,
Okay.
yeah, I'm good.
Did you have a question as well?
I did, but I forgot.
I do have one more. Sorry.
okay.
The one solution. Tell me a little bit more about that option for.
So one solution is the city's I don't know if it's called the global management software system, but it's all of our payroll, private service solution, our accounting.
Got it.
But there's a specific name for it, but I don't remember. But it's every department utilizes one solution for accounting.
It's an kind of enterprise system?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
enterprise
ERP.
system, yeah, enterprise
Okay.
system.
So I'm just gonna ask, as a person coming into this and just wanting to find out more, what is the overall reason for this audit? I mean, what's happening in the community? I saw some of the statistics. I see, some of the differences, and the opportunities through that. But what brought this to your desk, or to your attention? That's something you can ask.
the community. They came forward and asked for us to perform an audit. What staff did was do a snapshot of percentages that was not in depth enough of analyzing processes and things like that. And so it's kind of a situation, I think, of you don't know what you don't know, and so if we don't look at it, we don't know how to do better. So I don't think that there's any smoldering fire or certainly no flames necessarily, but we just want to be able to know that we're kind of being proactive using best practices.
And I'll add, nationally, this is happening all over the place. Sacramento had the same thing, they did the exact same thing. Some of our other sister cities are doing the exact same thing too, doing some audits and outsourcing or having outside independent auditors come in to look for best practices to see if we are doing anything wrong or if there's anything that we can do better.
I see another hand up from the middle.
Didn't quite hear what you said.
Oh, what I said?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought I saw a hand up.
Oh, okay. Are you working on a question?
Did you remember yours?
No, but I'm. You gotta really repress me because not a lot. But I one of the she raised an issue I thought was really very good as far as the training was concerned, because the training sounds like, okay, based on what you find, recommend or suggest some training and or identify if that's something you can do. And I think when I look at the whole scope of this thing, I see opportunities wherever we find there may be, let's say in the barrier analysis part where you're trying to look at practices or policies or procedures that may impact how the city does business and if it's affecting one or another group. If you find that maybe the practices or procedures are a little out of whack or not best practices or not or something that actually could be problematic, there may be an opportunity for some training in that particular area. Now, no one wants to step on the toes of the human resources management or that administration. Certainly, I expect that whoever works with the city is working hand in hand with the HR staff. But one of the things I've always found in my experience is there are always some opportunities to improve processes and procedures. And I see that there's a request, or part of this says, look at the policies and practices and procedures. And so there's an opportunity, in my view, for training in how we administer the recruitment process, how we do the outreach, how we, one of the things that I noticed that, we don't collect data on veterans. And that's something we ought to be doing. The size of the organization is, it doesn't concern me quite so much because the size of the city is so small. The obligations approach as your numbers increase, but we need to be collecting data on veterans and disabled, and that needs to be a part of the whole strategic plan. That of course is diversity as well, but there's some obligations as far as the veterans are concerned. And so I see there's an opportunity to kind of point out that we need to not only become familiar with the requirements to recognize, identify veterans, there's also some reporting requirements as far as veterans are concerned and disabled are concerned, once you hit a particular population threshold. But in looking at the scope of this thing, I see there are a lot of opportunities, they may be small, they may be large, to kind of identify if this is something that has not been inculcated in how the city operates, there might be an opportunity to kind of bring people up to speed on that if that's something that the city is receptive to.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, and I would just ask that if you see opportunities like that, as you're putting together a proposal, to just highlight those. And that'll be considered as we go through the process.
Okay.
Any more questions?
I think we'll do one more from the back.
We'll still be taking questions.
Oh yeah, so we'll be taking questions online till October 6th.
Mhm.
And I do really want to encourage everybody to sign up on our website through the little green icon to get the questions and answers. Because you'll see some repeats. There's already 3 questions up there on the bid amount, today's conference, and then the budget. So do you guys have any closing remarks that you'd like to say?
I do have one more question.
Oh yeah, sorry.
So, in looking at the other cities that have accomplished this, have they completed their audit at all? And or do you know any of the findings of their audit? And I'm just curious, is there a completed audit that you've taken a look at with the city?
Not an audit, I've taken a look at a completed diversity and inclusion strategy plan.
Okay, got it.
But I think every municipality that you study is going to be a different animal. just by the nature of.
Yeah, I mean, there's, you know, it depends on what the disparities are. But I was just curious, because you had mentioned that there are other cities that have done it. I'm just curious, have you looked at that to
Well,
kinda get a
the city of
feel?
Sacramento did an audit, but
Yeah.
it really wasn't an audit.
Okay.
They had the city auditor, and what I understood was the mayor was actually trying to justify the auditor position. And he had the city auditor perform a diversity audit. Now, of course, that normally something that falls within the realm of the EEO officer or the affirmative action officer, which explained the glaring deficiencies in the audit. But that is available if you want to take a look at what they did. And that happened before the city of Elk Grove did that too. And unfortunately, the city of Elk Grove kind of emulated that approach, not with the auditor, but they said, okay, tell us what we look like, you know, as a result of the community raising some concerns. And they got something very similar that said, here's what we look like. And it was, again, it wasn't a fair comparison, because if you just look at population and not look at the qualified folks in these jobs, you know, it does look disproportionate, you know, and it's, you know, kind of spectacular, and it gets media attention, but it's probably not fair to say that, you know, if there's a huge number of people that have these jobs, well, we need to look at the population that's qualified for those jobs, as opposed to just the population overall.
Yeah, the City of Sacramento audit, you can find that on the auditor's website.
Okay,
It's on the front page.
all right, thank you.
Any more questions? Okay, well, I think this really, concludes the information session. Please reach out to me, email me any questions, check the website frequently. I think that's it.
Look forward to seeing your proposals and read and hopefully working with you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming out.